The smallest of the European Union's member states, Malta is emerging as one of the fastest growing financial services centres. With its stable macroeconomic environment and Eurozone location, Malta offers credit and financial institutions new avenues for growth. The key factors behind the success of Malta are its robust regulatory and legal framework, competitive economic environment, growing numbers of fresh graduates specialising in financial services, and value for money operational costs. Apart from those, the island is home to a reputable regulator, central bank, stock exchange, and to an English-speaking nation with a pro-business government.
We are very competitive. We have managed to secure quite a lot of investment in financial services, something which we found quite steady, quite going on really well. We will build on that by giving it more identity, by making it less bureaucratic, by simplifying procedures, even in our financial services.
Malta's international banking sector has been gaining considerable ground in establishing itself as a finance hub in the Mediterranean region. Over the past decade or so, the sector has transformed itself, having several banks serving the local population as a reputable international banking centre.
In fact, the local banking sector has the advantage that it was based a lot on the British type of banking system. But it has remained very much based on a traditional model. So the loan to deposits ratio, for instance, is about 70%, while in the Eurozone it's about 110%, which means that the Maltese banks have a higher level of deposits, and these are mostly local deposits. The economy is very liquid in terms of funds. In fact, it is a net exporter of liquidity. So there's some other banks, we call them the intermediate banks, that are more like investment banks.
As growth continues, so do the range of products and services being offered in and from Malta. These include retail banking, private banking, trust business, investment banking, trade finance, treasury operations, and syndicated loans. Malta joined the European Union in 2004 and successfully adopted the euro in 2008. This inspires confidence and also allows operators easy access to European markets. At the same time, the island's strategic location at the centre of the Mediterranean makes it a convenient gateway to North Africa and an ideal base for financial institutions wishing to tap into the ever-increasing wealth being generated in the region.
Look, Malta, if you look at its economy and the business that is done abroad, predominantly most of its business was being done with European partners, with European countries. Nonetheless, when Malta became a member of the EU, that opened up an opportunity for operators in non-EU member states to use Malta as a base to be able to passport or cross-sell their products into Europe. And then, apart from that, Malta is uniquely placed in the Mediterranean region, right in the middle. It's the southernmost European member state in Europe, in the Med, but it is the closest country to the North African region. So there is this two-pronged opportunity in my view.
Looking at the figures this year, we've already seen the index increase by 5% from end-of-year figure, new listings coming onto the market, and as I mentioned as well, we have our first international member, and we're seeing an increase in international clients as well. So the connectivity, the technology, and this strategy, even from a rural point of view, to attract international business, is starting to bear fruit.
The Malta Financial Services Authority, MFSA, is the country's single regulator for all banking, investment and insurance business. Its high regulatory standards are modelled on EU legislation and best practice, whilst at the same time allowing for the flexibility necessary in a modern and dynamic banking environment, without imposing undue bureaucratic burdens on operators.
It's very clear from the data that everything took off once we joined Europe and started enjoying passporting rights. The second point is that there is a single regulator, which is helpful in a small country, so everything can function in one location. The third then being strong regulation based on European systems of regulation, particularly the EU, because we are members of the EU. And finally, everything is conducted in English. In fact, all legislation is in English and Maltese, but the interpretation of the English text prevails.
During the past few years, we have shown that we have a very resilient economy, while some economies in the Eurozone area, especially in the Mediterranean area, were faltering. Our economy continued to perform relatively well. We have an ambitious plan to enrich our economy with new activities, whether it's in tourism, whether it's in financial services, whether it's in manufacturing, whether it's in other activities, maritime services. We believe that Malta can still be the gateway of many companies and investors to do business through Malta with the European Union.
Well, for what we do, Malta is very good because it's like the bridge between Africa and Europe. It has a huge port. It's always been in trade. So I think Malta is, from a location point of view, perfect. It's also been very good with regard to how it handled the banking sector. I think it's been always a very conservative environment, and we are benefiting of that. Of course, we also hope we contribute to that, because we have been very profitable and very successful.
FinanceMalta is the public-private initiative set up to promote Malta as an international financial centre. One of its key objectives is to coordinate closely with relevant industry players in order to promote investment services, mutual funds, trustee services, insurance and banking, and to determine the most appropriate method and manner of doing this. It also assists practitioners to market the Malta concept and advantages in order to attract foreign direct investment. Its aim is to raise Malta's profile as a quality finance centre, both locally and internationally, as well as to create business and networking opportunities for firms operating in the sector.
I think that our financial services sector is a very robust one. I think it's built on strong foundations because it's very widespread. So we are not dependent on one single source of work for our success. Malta is a very interesting place. Things work and they work well. If you're a foreign investor, there are a number of criteria that you want to check out before you decide to come here. And I think Malta ticks all the right boxes.
Well, I think that one of the major key elements has been the commitment of Malta towards creating a base, and I would say for international business. I would say international business as distinct from simply financial services. It started off by Malta being a financial services centre, but I think today that our reputation has gone beyond simply the financial services sector, strictly speaking. And I think Malta today is an international business centre where international companies can come and through Malta undertake the business internationally and on a global scale.
In the face of the recent financial crises witnessed in Europe and the US, it becomes apparent that the true value of Malta's finance sector lies in sound policies and a robust regulatory regime that supports the strong banking sector. Those institutions which are willing to fully exploit the opportunities of a single European market and Malta's strategic location at the heart of the Mediterranean can gain significant benefit by locating themselves in Malta.
I think that Malta has all the ingredients in place, to meet the expectations of operators coming to Malta. And I think some of the key criteria on the basis of which you move to a jurisdiction, when you're setting your footprint into a new jurisdiction, is to look at the human resources which will service your business, is to look at the operational infrastructure servicing your business, is to look at the legal and regulatory framework, and is to look at the regulator. And I sincerely feel, albeit I'm Maltese, that we tick all the boxes, and I think that makes Malta an attractive value proposition.
I believe in our nation, in our country, and I believe also that we will be in a position to attract much more investment than we have till now. I believe that in the coming future, the economic growth of our island will grow considerably.